Every other breath you're taking right now didn't come from trees, not from the Amazon rainforest, not from any jungle. It came from slime. That green, slippery stuff you scrape off your aquarium walls or annoyedly step around on the beach produces more oxygen than every forest on Earth combined. And that's not all it can do. It can feed 10 billion people, replace oil, cure cancer, and kill an entire lake in 1 week. Today, I'm going to tell you about the creature you know the least about, even though without it, you couldn't take a single breath.
Hey, today we're talking about algae. Yeah, it doesn't sound as exciting as black holes or ancient civilizations, but stick around until the middle. I promise there's a fact coming that'll change how you look at that puddle near your house. Here's the plan for this video. First, what algae actually are and why they're not plants. Second, how they literally created the air we breathe. Third, their dark side, how they can kill. Fourth, the future. Food, fuel, medicine made from algae. Let's get into it.
First thing we need to break, algae are not plants. Even though they're green, live in water, and photosynthesize, botanists still argue about where to even classify them. The truth is, algae isn't a real scientific group. It's more like biology's junk drawer. Anything that photosynthesizes in water but isn't clearly a plant or a cyanobacterium gets dumped in there. Technically, it's a paraphyletic group, organisms from completely different branches of the tree of life that just happen to look similar. Among algae, you'll find single-celled organisms just a few microns wide, diatoms, a giant brown seaweed called kelp that can grow up to 60 meters tall, taller than a 15-story building, and even algae that live inside sloth fur and turn it green. Some species have existed for over 1 billion years. For comparison, dinosaurs appeared only 230 million years ago. Algae watched the continents form. 3.5 billion years ago, Earth's atmosphere was toxic. There was almost no oxygen, but plenty of methane and carbon dioxide. Then cyanobacteria showed up, ancient relatives of algae. They started photosynthesizing. Slowly, over 1 billion years, they pumped oxygen into the atmosphere. This event is called the Great Oxidation Event. And yes, an event, because for most organisms alive at the time, oxygen was a deadly poison. It triggered one of the first mass extinctions in the planet's history. Algae caused it. And now, the fact I promised at the start. Marine phytoplankton, microscopic algae floating in the ocean, produce between 50% and 80% of all the oxygen on Earth. By the most conservative estimate, that's at least every other breath you take. Forests matter, but the ocean is the planet's real lungs. And the ones doing the work aren't trees. They're organisms the size of a dot. But here's what they don't teach you in school. The same organism that gave you oxygen can kill you in 30 minutes. No knife, no poison in the usual sense, not even a single touch. In 1987, in Canada, people ate mussels, ordinary mussels from a restaurant. A few hours later, they started losing their memory. Some forgot their own children's names. 3 people died. The cause? Algae. And this is far from the only case like it. I'll explain exactly what happened and why it could happen again, anywhere in the world, including your own city. What happened in Canada is called a harmful algal bloom. When too many nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus from farm runoff, get into the water, algae start multiplying explosively. There get to be so many of them that the water literally changes color: red, green, brown. That's where the term red tide comes from. Some species release toxins while they're at it. Domoic acid, saxitoxin, brevetoxin. These build up in shellfish and fish. When a person eats them, the toxin attacks the nervous system. Domoic acid, the very one that killed people in Canada, blocks memory.
That's why the illness was named amnesic shellfish poisoning. But that's not all. When a bloom ends, billions of algae die at once and start to rot. Their decomposition eats up all the oxygen in the water. This creates what's called dead zones, areas of ocean where there's literally nothing to breathe. The largest one, in the Gulf of Mexico, covers an area roughly the size of an entire European country. So the same organism that filled the atmosphere with oxygen a billion years ago, today, thrown out of balance, can turn a stretch of ocean into an oxygen-free wasteland in a matter of weeks.
Now, the good news. Because the same power that lets algae kill is already being used to save lives. Food. Spirulina, algae grown specifically for food, contains more protein per gram than beef and far more iron than spinach. NASA is seriously considering it as a main food source for future Mars missions because 1 kilogram of spirulina delivers roughly as much protein as a ton of beef, while taking up thousands of times less space and water. Fuel. Some algae species are up to 50% oil by composition. That oil can be turned into biofuel. 1 hectare of algae farming can yield 30 times more fuel than a hectare planted with soybeans. Several countries are already testing aircraft running on algae-based fuel. Plastic. Companies are already producing biodegradable plastic from algae. It breaks down in months instead of the 400 years regular plastic takes. Medicine. Compounds extracted from brown algae are being tested as a basis for anti-cancer drugs. In lab conditions, they slow the growth of tumor cells. It's still early-stage research, but it's considered one of the most promising directions in biopharmacology right now.
So you end up with a paradox. The same organism that can kill a city in a week can also feed the planet for decades. It all depends on how much of it there is and under what conditions it grows. We're used to dividing nature into important and unimportant. Tigers, whales, redwoods, important. Slime on rocks? Not. But that exact slime created the air we breathe, and it might be the thing that feeds and heals humanity for the next 100 years. Maybe the most important creatures on the planet aren't the ones that look good in a Discovery Channel documentary. Maybe they're the ones we don't even notice. If this video changed the way you look at green pond scum, hit like. That's the best thank you an author can get. Let me know in the comments, which fact surprised you most? The oxygen, the poison, or the Mars food? And if you want a video about seahorses, write that too, and we'll cover it. If you like our channel, you can support us via the link in the description below. See you next time.